So we all know the difference between right and wrong, what's good, what's bad, difference between junk food and good food. We're all pretty smart in that area. But sometimes it's about behaviour. And we're going to talk to Jess from Active Performance Physio today, just about some of the behavioural things that we can improve just in day-to-day training and life in general. That's Ignite IQ. So Jess, I sat down and worked with you. We went through what my week looks like, and just like everyone else, it's pretty busy. Most athletes have, whether it's training, they've got work, they've got other commitments like family, partners, kids, all that sort of stuff. Everyone's busy, and I'm no different. And I think what really helped me was going through and planning it all out. And one of the things that you really highlighted was behaviour. And I know the difference between good food and junk food, but really it came down to behaviour. So what would you recommend endurance athletes in particular focus on to improve their healthy habits?
Yeah, definitely. So like any athlete that would come in to see me, probably the first things I would do would be doing a weekly planning guide with them. So it actually takes quite a bit of time, and we really get into the nitty gritty of all the activities that you do across the week that take up your time. Now we do this because we're basically trying to find out where we can fit our nutrition in our day and where we can get to doing our meal planning, our grocery shopping, our meal prepping. So the first step, like we did with you, is to actually go through the week, put in your work schedule, your training schedule, your sleep schedule is really important, and then any other like social activities and meetings. Anything that commonly comes up every single week. Once you pop those in, that's when we can really find where we can fit our nutrition. And you are a great example of where it was quite difficult to fit our required number of meals and snacks in the day because you have such a busy schedule. So once you popped all those things in, we can start to really highlight through where you're going to have your breakfast, where you're going to have your lunch, your dinner, your snacks. Or it might look a little bit different from that as well, and again, you're a great example of where typically most people will have breakfast between the 7 to 9 a.m. Your breakfast is set quite a bit later because you're busy across the morning, where we've actually set you some snacks in the morning first and then popping your breakfast around that 10 to 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Doing your weekly plan will also help to decide where you're going to do your grocery shop and where you're going to do any form of meal prep as well. So again, it was really useful for you to figure out which nights are your busy nights that you possibly don't have as much time to cook on, and therefore the nights prior that we would like to be cooking double the amount of food so that we can just have a backup meal on that night.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it really helped for me to sort of lay it all out, because sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming when you think about your week, and quite often you don't really understand how much you have going on in a week until you've actually written it out. To have it all laid out right in front of me was really helpful, I found. But is there like a particular day of the week that people can prepare, and how do you sort of suggest that they do their meal prep in terms of fitting it around their routines and things?
Yeah, definitely. So everyone is different, obviously, and it particularly will depend on your work and your training schedule. So most people will find a weekend day is their best day because the majority of people don't work on weekends. However, if you are a shift worker, if you are working weekends, we can pick really any other day of the week. We just like to make it consistent, and it needs to have probably a significant chunk of time for you to actually do this activity. The other really great option is also looking at when people actually get paid.
Yep.
Because often people like to do their planning on payday. So that's when you sit down, work out your what your next week looks like from whatever day that is, do up your grocery list, look at where your social events are as well, so where you know that you won't need to be cooking on certain nights or will need to be cooking double, etc. And then the following day is when you go do your grocery shop and potentially your meal prep. So it is really individualized, and doing your weekly plan will help us really determine which day suits you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. As I said, I think it really helped to sort of sit down with you and do that as well, as opposed to sitting there and doing it myself, because I don't probably ask the right questions of myself, which you were able to help with quite easily. So I found it really beneficial to sit down and go through that process with you for sure. You helped lay it out beautifully. But endurance athletes like myself, triathletes and really like any kind of athlete, and especially people who they might run hotels or bars and have kids, and like we talked about, super busy. Most of us are pressed for time. Right, pressed for time, or we're poor at managing time. So what recommendations do you have for, I guess, like convenient options for those who, I guess, can't cook 3 times a day?
Yeah. We have a whole heap of recommendations, and I guess they vary in the amount of effort and time required for them. So probably starting with the most amount of effort for our convenient options is something like our meal delivery companies. So things like the HelloFresh or Marley Spoon, where you're still actually having to prep the meals, but it has taken away the shopping component, so you can just put it on a subscription and it comes to your door every week. It's taken away a lot of that effort and time and planning with the ease of that service.
Yep.
The second option, again, still a little bit of effort, is to actually put convenient meals together. So I like to call them like the non-cook meal. So using, a bit more of the package options. So things like salad bags or steam fresh bags of veg, popping them with a microwave rice or a wrap, and then an easy protein source, so whether it's like a roast chicken, a tin tuna. So you can see that it's still a really nutritious meal, but it's a lot easier to pop together and there's no actual cooking involved.
Yep.
Then we still have 2 other options where we can utilize local businesses for actual meal prep, where they've actually cooked up something fresh, popped it in a container, and you can go and purchase those things. A lot of those work where you might need to pop in an order, but there's a few companies around that we can always chat about that. You can actually just drive in and pick up a few pre-made meals.
Yep.
The last option is to actually use frozen meals, and I'm a really big advocate for them because I do know how busy we all are. Something for myself is I will always have 2 frozen meals as a backup, and I think everyone really should, because time does really get away from us. You get stuck in traffic, at training, at work, whatever it is, and even when you do have that perfect plan of coming home to put something together, time gets away with us, and basically having those frozen meals as a backup or planning them into your into your diet for the week is a really good option on those really busy days.
Yeah, it's also much more budget friendly as well. I've found I sat down and worked out what I'd usually have in a week prior to our meeting, and then I sort of compared that to having these options, and it was actually quite staggering how much I was actually saving.
Yeah, whilst you think some of those options are a little bit more pricey than what you could technically put together, in the long run, if you're usually going and buying food out, or even potentially buying your groceries, but not actually cooking them and then throwing them out at the end of the week, you also still save a lot of money that way.
For sure. Now, as was highlighted in our consult, I potentially have shares in Mars Bar, the Mars product, so for me it was quite a convenient option and something that I really enjoyed, and you brought your devil horns out and said I can't have them anymore, but not necessarily, not every day. But what's some other sort of healthy snacks, I guess, and sort of easy healthy snacks that busy endurance athletes can have?
Yeah. So snacks, I really like to think of them as like little small convenient meals as well. We want something that you can really pack in your bag, take with you, keep in the car. So a lot of the time it's not necessarily going to be something that you need to take the time to prepare and put something together on a plate. We're thinking things more like fruit. We're thinking muesli bars, protein bars, pre-packaged either squeeze or tub yogurts. And then if you do want to pop together like a little bit of prep, something like rice cakes, rice crackers with a topping or a dip, are some other really good choices.
Yep. Awesome. So these all sound awesome in theory. I think what I was really quite staggered about was how hard it is sometimes to change your behaviours. So we sat down and went through that, and then I had all these fantastic plans. I went out and got all the stuff that I needed from the shop a couple of days later. So I was prepared for the week, and then it was quite interesting to then have that awareness, which was brought up about how instantly my brain would start thinking about these other convenient options, and just those bad sort of behaviours or habits that I've created. So in terms of accountability, have you got any advice for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that habits don't just take 1 week, 2 weeks, even a month to create or to override. we know that they take months and months, if not into years, to really override your previous behaviours that you were doing. So I do really recommend a few different strategies to create new habits and behaviours. One of these is doing the weekly plan and doing your plan for your meals as well. So getting into that habit, pushing yourself to do that every single week is a really great habit to start forming. Then we also really recommend food tracking. So there's lots of different varieties of doing that. My favorite and the most simplest way is to actually just handwrite it down.
Yep.
We have some very simple templates that is just brekkie, lunch, dinner with your snacks, that you're just handwriting what you've actually consumed in that day, and doing that process will actually make you more aware of whether you're eating the right things for your training, or whether you're even particularly like missing things out, which is often the case in busy schedules.
Yeah.
Once you've sort of done those pen and paper activities, we can go as far as using food tracking apps if that's something that we are interested in, and we can really get to know whether you're hitting your actual macronutrient and energy goals that way. But again, it's not necessarily for everyone, and I wouldn't expect someone to be doing it for a significant amount of time if it is taking up a lot of time in their day. Lastly, we also really recommend a physical form of accountability, usually through a family friend or even a dietitian. So if you can find a buddy that is going to be your accountability mate, that will be checking in on you, making sure that you're following these habits through, we really would recommend that. But if you don't have that sort of person, then seeing a dietitian is a really great way. And usually we like to see touch points initially, every week or 2 weeks to really start forming those habits. But the goal really is that once those habits are starting to be instilled into your day-to-day life, that you can actually spread those appointments out and no longer rely so much on that dietitian for assistance.
And I think the most important thing too is, in terms of this, it's also being honest as well. It's great to have a food diary, but if you're not honest and sharing that vital information with you, you can't really help me. No. If I'm hiding some of the information or some of the bad habits that I'm still creating at the moment. So you'll see that when I check in next. But Jess, that was outstanding. Hope you guys learned something from that. As we said, and as we do, with endurance training, it's all about creating good habits, and a lot of that is about behaviour and our behavioural changes and improvements. And Jess has given us some great information there, and I hope you guys are able to take that on board. And yeah, she's a great dietitian and has some really, really good methodology as well, and really helps go through the process nice and simple, which is what I really love. Yeah, so thanks, Jess.
No worries, thank you.
Look forward to chatting again soon.
Yeah, thank you.